Boom. Hell yeah. I want to shout out to Rondito, who I just saw saying, this music on the stream is so dope. Maybe because the purple lean is kicking in. Hell yeah. Honestly, maybe that should just be my whole gimmick. Making super fucking slowed down videos set to paint drying. Uh, I could do that for a living right there. Okay, so we got 14 more pages to go of this edit right here, and I would very much love to get through to chapter 50 today. I can't believe it's been 35 days. That's more than a tenth of a year that we put into this motherfucker. Wait, is that how? No, that's not at all how numbers work. Well, it's close. We'll have spent 10% of a year on editing this science fiction novel right here. So yeah, let's pop to it. So what's happening there? We just Radimir Stitch got his ass beat. Fucking Dan is DTF. What all is going on in the life of one Freya J. Jokla right there? So let's get through this chapter if we can. In this chapter so far, what happened? Yes, basically she just learned. She went in, woke up in the morning, got to thank God. I don't know. Today seemed kind of odd. No barking from her mom. Starball seems kind of warm, you know. Fucking ridiculous. But I digress. So by the end of second period, Freya was hungry again. Despite drinking at least 1,500 calories of Ensure in the night, Freya was hungry again by the end of second period. The lesson had petered out and everyone was checking their phones while Mr. McCallaghan took a phone call himself in the hall. All Freya could think about were the Moulets Frites. Is that how you say that? The song Cowboy by Kid Rock, except all the lyrics where the word cowboy is replaced by Starball. Is his like on I'm a cowboy, I'm a Starball, on a steel horse I ride, I'm wanted dead or alive, or is that like Bad Company or something like that? I don't listen to white trash rock for the most part, so you might have to fill me in on exactly what's happening with Kid Rock. Yeah, I don't listen to him or fucking Yeller Wolf or that other guy. They're all about the same to me. Insane Clown Posse. What other dirt rock is out there? Fucking Poison, Whitesnake. Although we're about to get into a part of the book where we specifically talk about the band Foreigner, and they're about as white trash as you can get. Despite I think they're from fucking England. But wait, hold on. Were they from England? No, they can't be from England. British American rock band. Oh yeah. Veteran English musician and ex-Spooky Tooth member Mick Jones. Mick Jones. So Bon Jovi was dead or alive. Yeah, that's another guy where I'm not the hugest Bon Jovi fan ever to grace this gay earth. Let me see. Alabama Whitesnake is Hogwarts' porn name. Well, that's not too bad. What do we got here? So this should be another paragraph. All Freya could think about were the moulets frites she'd tasted in Paris at a restaurant called Dakar Bazaar. She'd only tried a little of Randall's. It wasn't something she would ever order on her own, but she could remember it vividly. but she could remember the taste vividly, and thinking of it now made her mouth water. She'd already checked the menus of every restaurant in town. No one had mussels at all, much less moulets frites. Wait, how? Yeah, I guess it'd be a little weird for them not to have mussels. I don't know, maybe it's the wrong fucking season for mussels. Mm. The song Dead or Alive by Bon Jovi, except lyrics where the word is replaced by Starball. Yeah, by the way, if anybody listening to this stream wants to record some kind of intro song for this whole thing, feel free. Doesn't have to be good, and I'll record some more paint drying, and we'll fucking make it happen there. Actually, it would be easiest for me if you just made it like the length of the intro that's on there. I think the intro video is just on YouTube. So feel free to sing the song Dead or Alive by Bon Jovi with all the lyrics replaced with Starball. Just make sure it's your own original recording, so I don't get DCM gayed. Oh, God. Ridiculous right there. It was such a specific thing to be hungry for. So it's manganese, by the way, that she's deficient in right now. It was such a specific thing to be hungry for. Freya wondered if she was deficient in some vitamin that minerals were rich in. It was such a specific thing to be hungry for. Freya wondered if she was deficient in some vitamin mussels were rich in. She spent some time searching for it on her phone, getting embroiled in an article about whether or not food cravings were linked to nutrient deficiencies. It dawned on her that oddly specific food cravings were something that pregnant women got. The world seemed to narrow as the thought echoed around her. She thought again of the dot of blood on her palm. What did the Starball put inside of her? The chain of thought. Mm-hmm. Her moment of horror was short-lived. Oh, shit. What's up, Califrey? What we got there? Song Dead or Alive by Bon Jovi. Exalt the lyrics where the word is cowboy or replace a star. I can't get over how funny that is. I don't know why that's funny. That's funny as hell to me. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Her moment of horror was short-lived. She recognized the chain of thought as incredibly far-fetched. The Starball wasn't even organic. Unless the orb was some sort of time-traveling artificial insemination capsule from the future, in which case it was definitely... Pretty sure short-lived is always hyphenated. It is. Her moment of horror was short-lived. Yeah, that's... Freya's moment of horror was short-lived. The starball wasn't even organic. She was in no danger of that unless the orb was some sort of time-traveling artificial insemination capsule from the future, in which case it was definitely off target when it pierced her palm. Still, she couldn't No. So we don't want pierced there. Still, she didn't understand the mechanism it was using to modulate her emotions. She couldn't be sure of anything. Again, she wondered what a CT scan would reveal. Second period finally ended, and Mr. McCallahan was still talking in the hall, covering his mouth with his hand as he filtered past. His eyes were glazed with exhaustion. His eyes were glazed with exhaustion from a divorce that had been dragging on all semester. Freya liked his class because he was too preoccupied with his own suffering to focus on hers. Mr. McCallahan never bothered him. He never bothered her. Hell yeah. She got the tools from her locker and headed to the bike racks. By the time Tate arrived, her hands were numb from cold and blackened with road dirt and grease. She'd struggled to get the rear wheel off before figuring out how to release the derailleur. She took a close look at her brake pads to see if she needed to replace them while she had the wheels off, but they still had a bit of life to them. She locked the sad-looking frame back to the rack, and they set off down the hill, each carrying a tire. They walked in silence nearly halfway down the hill. Tate was much shyer outside of the group. "Have you talked to Claire?" Freya asked, sick of the silence. "No. When she gets mad, she won't talk for a few days. She's kinda insufferable. I would have cut her off long ago if she wasn't family," Tate said. Freya could understand that. She still thought chances were 50-50 she would never see Lassa again, and it wasn't an entirely unwelcome thought. "What a chicken shit," Tate continued, and for a moment she wasn't sure if he was talking about Claire or not, but he hefted the tire, running his finger along the deep gashes in the side walls. "Have you ever seen the YouTube video of the guy trying to pop a big rig's tires? They're like at an ungodly high PSI. "Yeah, the one where he's trying to pop them with a screwdriver or something and winds up getting impaled? Crazy shit." "Yeah, that's the one. Too bad there wasn't something like that going on. I seen another one where they rig up a taser to a bike seat and it shocks people when they try to steal it." Freya made an effort to engage, wondering if Tate had any substance to himself besides videos he'd seen on the internet. Again, she remembered the conversation with Dan on Sunday night. He was only 2 years older, but he'd been through so much. I think Tate is a freshman, actually. Well, maybe Tate's like early a year or something like that. Good God Almighty. Bailey bicycle was empty. Yeah, you can't say deserted if there's a guy there. Deserted means nobody's there. And I think we describe I think we described taco time as deserted, but for the taco lady. So we can't use deserted there. Behind the counter, a heavily tattooed man with a Fu Manchu mustache was staring off into space. There was punk rock blaring when they came into the store. As soon as he noticed them, he reached over to the receiver and turned it down, waving at them as they approached the counter. "Is that Limp Wrist?" Tate asked, pointing to the speakers. "Yeah, I saw them in Philly. It's Stalag 13 with Los Crudos. Not a lot of people know him." "I have their self-titled on vinyl," Tate chirped, and Freya had never heard of either band. She didn't like music where she couldn't understand the lyrics. So shoutouts to Limp Wrist. That's in there just for Sloth. He fucking loves that band for some reason. For some reason. I haven't seen Sloth in a long time. Hopefully he's okay. Got that cold brew jangling. Yeah, I'm like seriously thinking about just trying to make my own cold brew for like a batch or two. "That's really cool. I'm Colin. What can I help you with today?" He turned his attention to Freya. Freya was staring at Colin's tattoos. He had a sleeveless t-shirt and his arms were covered in vipers. They spiraled up his forearms to sink inky fangs into his biceps, and starbursts of black blood disappeared into the shirt. She could see they continued to his neck. For a moment, all she could think of was the dream of the Silas River, overflowing with tendrils. She had a mild urge to just turn around and leave, but Tate was standing right next to her. That was insane. I think we said that was insane like about 5 different times in the story there. She held up the wheel. The damage spoke for itself. Colin's face fell. He took the wheel from her and looked it over, scowling at the ruined tire. "Wow, I can't believe someone did this. That's so fucked up," he hissed. So that's not the right intensity. "Wow, I can't believe someone did this. That's so fucked up," he hissed, surprising them with his sudden intensity. He seemed as incensed as if Freya had been a member of his family. "Do you know who did it?" "Yeah, the police do too. He's on camera." "Well, I hope he goes to jail for it. What a piece of shit. I bet he ruined your rims too. You dump him or something?" "No, he's just crazy," Freya said, careful to keep her voice even. So in the rewrite, actually, she did dump him. We have a pretty good idea. Well, I hope he goes to jail for it. What a piece of shit. I bet he ruined your rims, too. Did you dump him or something?" "Yeah, he's crazy," Freya said, careful to keep her voice even. The bicycle mechanic was working himself up. He seemed eager to be outraged on her behalf, and she didn't want to play the game with him. He noticed her discomfort and drew back a little, recalibrating his approach. "He'll get his. What goes around comes around," he said, tossing the wheel in the air so it spun and then catching it with one hand. "Okay, let me take these tires off and tell you if you need new rims or not. Let's see the other one too." Tate handed over the other tire. He seemed a little awestruck by Colin. Freya couldn't understand why. She thought he looked pretty goofy. Those ear gauges looked so stupid to her. But he knew what he was doing. He had the tires off in no time, chatting easily about bands with Tate the entire time. Freya was suddenly aware that this was how Tate talked normally. Tate wasn't boring at all. She was the reason that our conversation had been so stilted. "Did you buy the bike here?" Colin asked as he inspected the rims. "My dad did. He got 3 of them 2 Christmases ago." "Okay, cool. What's the last name? I'll look it up." "Jokla." A look crossed Colin's face. Of course, everyone knew. He typed her name into the computer. "I'll replace these for free. I'm sorry this happened to you." "Oh, thank you so much. But really, if you could, please charge me the full amount." Bill me. "Really, if you could, please bill me the full amount. I'm filing charges, and the police want a copy of the receipts." Oh, of course. Well, it's going to be a little expensive, unfortunately. The rims are both gouged up. If you want to take them home and grind them out, great, but it's probably a lot easier just to replace them. You're looking at $225 for both complete wheels and the saddle. The good part is I can just pull wheels off a floor model so you don't have to wait around. That's great. We need to get back to class, Freya said. $200 just for wheels? My whole bike didn't cost that much, Tate said, looking astonished. These are from a pretty nice bicycle, Colin explained. In general, the rear wheel is the most expensive part of a bike. She needs a new cassette anyhow. The teeth on this one are pretty worn. The tire was almost bald before Mr. Stalky got to it. You must ride a lot. I do. These are the tires this came with. Try to swap your tires before the tread gets this slick. It's way too easy to go too fast down a hill. Let me see. Next time, try to swap your tires before the tread gets this slick. It's way too easy to go too fast downhill and skid right into an intersection. He showed them his elbow, which was one big glossy massive scar surrounded by tattoos. Take my word for it. Whoa, Tate cooed. But Freya only nodded. She wasn't impressed. She handed over her debit card and he ran it through, printing 2 copies of the receipt for her like she asked. Freya watched carefully as he took the wheels off one of the models on the floor. What had taken her almost 10 minutes of fooling around took him less than a minute. Soon he had them pumped up, and he sent them on their way back up the hill. The guy was so chill, Tate said. I can't believe he was going to give you the tires for free. It's because of my dad, Freya said, a tightness in her chest. That's really cool. I mean, people must have really liked her. Her. That's really cool. I mean, people must have really liked him, Tate said, realizing he'd said something dumb and trying to salvage it. She had to try very hard to keep her voice even. They did. They were silent the rest of the way. Okay, so let's recap. Chapter number... What was our chapter number here? What's our number? Eyes are bothering me today. Oh, so it's chapter 49. So I'm pretty okay with chapter 49. Okay, so wakes up. Why'd you leave the keys upon the table? Why'd you leave the starball on the table? You wanted to. I don't think you trust in my intergalactic parasite. I want to listen to that right after this stream, man. Yeah, maybe I should just sing the entire time through it. I'm sure that would be great for our fucking viewer count. Sitting at a solid 6 right now. Although for whatever reason, the stream is always full of Chinamen on that old Periscope. So shout outs to them. You know, good luck with your plans to conquer best Korea. Yeah, what if China was just like at one point they're just, you know what? Fuck it. And they just rolled through and wiped out North Korea. Just took it the fuck over. They're like, all right, yeah, we'll just weather your like 3 or 4 nuclear weapons. We don't give a fuck. Oh my God. Just as like a gangsta show of might. Like, yeah, what now? In the US and like Russia, we wouldn't do jack shit. And then they'd start eyeballing like regular Korea. Like, oh, what's going on down there, guys? Oh, I can't wait for World War III. This whole thing was just like edging for apocalypse thus far. Okay, so yeah, I really, really like the part where Mr. Manzini feels terrible about giving her the like book of shame. That's great. So we give a name to Freya's teacher, Mrs. Gant. So this is Mrs. Gant. Then period 2, Mrs. McCallahan. And then later in the final thing of the day has got to be Mr. Manzini. So we've identified 3 of the potentially 6 teachers that she has. That's cool. A little worries that she's like impregnated by an alien parasite. She's not. That's just a spoiler. We're just kind of foreshadowing some other shit that might go down. So that's cool. Colin. Yeah, I don't know. if we get any traction from this this whole bicycles. In fact, this could be cut. Honestly, what are the takeaways from the Bailey bicycle scene? How long do we do this for? So let's talk about this chapter right here. So I think her like craving for muscles is kind of like an interesting thing. It's worth keeping in there. This conversation with Tate could probably be cut. It's like a little awkward and flat. The bicycle mechanic is just, I do like the interaction with him where he's like getting worked up on her behalf, like the way that people will sometimes do that, and she just doesn't like it. I think it highlights some aspects of her character where she's just kind of like a little over it with a lot of stuff, so that's interesting. Let me see. Debit card. It like ends on a really good note here. So, but we might have been beating the Randall is dead drum for like the entirety of the book. So yeah, there's that aspect of it. I'm gonna leave it in there for now. But so far, out of all the things that could potentially be cut, that scene could probably just be like a paragraph, honestly. So, Krav Maga class, this is chapter 50. Krav Maga class was charged and brutal. Vitko had heard about Radomir, and he made them drill for what seemed like forever. Freya held a plank until she felt like her arms would snap in half. Trying not to be the first to drop, but of course she was. Vitko brought out the training knives. His eyes fell on her to make sure she was okay, and she nodded back. She was eager. What if Malcolm had decided to carve her up instead of her tires? Everyone was so serious. It was strange to see Cameron and Dan go through an entire class without clowning around once. She caught Dan's eyes, dark and flashing with intent, as he disarmed Cameron, and a thrill shot through her. She felt like she was part of something, part of a team in a way she never had and she'd never felt in drama class. She got other eyes looking around the same way. Everyone felt it. At the end of it all, they ran, laps around the gym, and here she wasn't the first to drop out. As everyone else began to flag, Freya, Dan, and Cameron were still going strong. There was a brief look between them as Vitko raised his hands for a halt. They were the runners. She was sure now that she would join the track team in the spring. They joined the cluster of students for the lecture. Now, I know what you are thinking, Vitko said, pointing first to Dan, then to Cameron, then to Freya. Your friend has been hurt, and you think you should do something about it. Something is wrong, and you think, I will make this right. I know you are thinking it, because I am thinking it too. Freya's eyes widened. She'd gotten so used to vague feelings being just in her head. It was a little shocking to hear Vitko openly acknowledge the electric thing in the air between all of them. For a moment, everyone was glancing at everyone else. Dan was to her left, and she saw a hard look in his eyes, something at odds with the rest of his face. The other boys had the same look. They were all trying to be more than they were, striving to be men. Now she felt the divide yawning between them. She'd felt so close to them only moments before, but that was only an illusion. She was the jejune outsider who would never really know what it felt like to be one of them. How bitter to only glimpse it. Look at me now. I am old. I know the cost of revenge, Vitko said, breaking the moment. He traced along the scar on his neck with his index and middle fingers. That was an impressive scar, not some glorified skinned elbow. Vitko paced back and forth between them, in full command of their attention. Back and forth in front of them, in full command of their attention. Young men will do what they will do. I cannot make you take the right path. But anyone who's going out picking fights is not welcome in my class. What I teach you here is to defend yourself only, not to bully, not to take revenge. Violence is the last refuge of the incompetent. Freya's face lit up with recognition. Vitko smiled at her as he scanned the room. Ha! Only Freya knows this one. Since the rest of you are illiterate, I will dumb it down for you. Fighting is always stupid. If you're in a fight and no one is paying you to be in a ring, you made a mistake. My class is about fixing that mistake and paying the smallest price you can for it. Do not go out looking to make the mistake, okay? I pay a lot of tax to make sure there are police out there to deal with stupid people who break the law and hurt others. Do not waste that money. Do not waste the time I spent teaching you to be smart by being stupid, Dan Gregulus. Vitko stopped pacing in front of Dan. Dan gave a look of false outrage, and everyone laughed. Okay, stay strong, stay smart. Everyone did well this week. Stick together. Make time to visit your friend who is hurt. He will always remember the ones who came to see him in the hospital, Vitko said, dismissing the class. Well, goddamn, this is like one chapter where our other one was like kind of shaky and everything like that. I feel like everything is on point and on message in this. The dialogue from Vitko is good. You can feel like the electric air. I love the part where she thinks of herself as a Jejun outsider because she can't know what it's like to be a dude. In the same, like, which is a really interesting point as to what's coming later. So yeah, just want to, like, if this was a Bob Vila stream, I would be like mashing saved in the background right there. I really like the Vitko character in this. And like, not just the Vitko character, but what he brings out in the children there. Super interesting. No one was eager to go home after the class. A pack of students migrated. No one was eager to go home after class. They migrated into Ballerina Pizza, all of them hungry to keep that. Many of them migrated into Ballerina Pizza, all of them hungry to keep that strange feeling of accord going. Freya was just hungry. She ordered a meatball parm, not caring if someone gave her shit. No one did. She ordered a full-size meatball parm, not caring if someone gave her a shit. She ordered a full meatball parm, not caring if someone gave her shit. No one did. The others were just as famished from the intense workout. Brad Klein was there already. He'd commandeered the booth, and they all squeezed in. Tate was the last to order, and the table was full. "Oh, hey, buddy. Let me sort that out for you," Cameron said, and he got up and brought over an infant's high chair, presenting it with a flourish as everyone laughed. Tate bent low and moved like he was going to try and tackle Cam's legs. Cam darted aside, but it was just a feint, and Tate stole his seat. "Thanks, friend," Tate said. Cam shook his head in mock shock. He'd been had. "Hey, what was Vitko talking about in class about us being illiterate?" Tate asked Freya, as Cam returned the high chair and grabbed a different chair from an empty table. "Violence is the last refuge of the incompetent." That's an Isaac Asimov quote from a trilogy called The Foundation, about a guy who uses history and psychology to predict the downfall of a galactic empire and avoid a 30,000-year-long dark age. "Whoa, like Warhammer?" Tate asked. Sorta. It's set in a 15,000-year dark age too, after the Emperor is betrayed during the Horus Heresy. "No one cares about your toy soldiers, Tate," Brad chided, cutting him off before he could get going. "Fuck off, it's a game," Tate complained. Tate shot back. "Perma-virginity simulator," Brad joked. "When's the next Magic tournament, Bradley?" Tate fired back. "Hey, fuck off. At least there's money in that." "Not with your deck," Cam teased. The food came and Freya sat in on it and listened to the others talk. Ballerina was surprisingly good for hole-in-the-wall pizza. The marinara wasn't too sweet, and they did dense, spicy meatballs that had an almost burnt crust. She liked them a lot better than some of the giant flavorless ones the other pizza places served, where they were mostly breadcrumbs. She noticed she was eating too quickly, and told herself to slow down and keep pace with the others. Jeremy and Travis from class had joined them. They were both juniors and wanted to know what the deal with Radomir was. Cameron told them what had happened at Brad's house, and when he got to the confrontation, Brad and Dan climbed out of the booth to reenact it. Cameron did an over-the-top Dan with a dopey expression. Dan acted out the part of Malcolm Lewis, nailing the fake black way he talked. Well, what is the way that he talked? No. Asimov like Warhammer, I died. I know, right? Uh. So dumb. Uh. Mm. Nailing the fake thug way he talked. Yo, let me get a slice, he cried, caricaturing his walk so it almost looked like he was having a seizure. So it looked like he was having a seizure. Freya almost choked laughing. Their improvised play ended with him tucking his fists against his chest, flapping his arms like chicken wings, and disappearing into the bathroom. From behind the door, they could hear him shout, "Bark!" Everyone was laughing. Everyone was dying laughing. I can't wait till they arrest his retarded ass, Tate said, as Dan emerged and reclaimed his seat. Who the fuck slashes bike tires? On camera, Freya added. He's gonna be bummed when he finds out there's no JV basketball in jail. Ooh, a few people hooted in response. I thought about saying fake gangster. What we want to avoid there is, well, I mean, how much do we have to avoid it? So we took out a lot of the language that made that character just a retarded wigger. And no offense to retarded people by calling them wiggers, because most retarded people have more sense than to act that way. Although I you know, what can I say? You know, I'm like a white dude. I say "they're," and I host rap contests. So I don't have all the room in the world to talk about this one right there. Right there. But yeah, we took out a lot of that because I thought it was a bit over the top. So maybe the way that they're talking about him doesn't make a lot of sense. Potentially, we should gift him with another, like maybe he has a mild lisp. Maybe he has like a cleft palate. Oh, what do we have here? We've got Foy says, "Hey, can you react to something?" Yeah, like I'm reacting to this right now. Yeah, this is not recorded. Nobody in their right mind would spend the time to record this. It has to be live. Trust me. So I look at the chat from time to time. If you feel like making a comment or an edit or something, I do take a gander all the time. Welcome to the stream. This is the story of Freya Jokla. The book name is Gravid. It's about, this is my 8th novel, and we're about maybe 38% of the way through our edit of it. We've been doing about 1% a day. So yeah, this is our second session of the day, so I'm a little bit punchy. Right now in the story, everybody is getting pizza after Krav Maga class. A fake thuggish way he talked. Yeah, really what we want to do is let's paint that as a character who has resources and connections within the city. Fucking... Mm-hmm. He's gonna be bummed when he finds out there's no JV basketball in jail. Ooh, a few people hooted in response. Oh shit, I didn't even think of that. Is he 18? Tate asked, and Freya nodded. I just fucked up his whole life, Dan said, shaking his head. No great loss, Freya replied. God damn, Tate said. You're as cold as ice. Stop. Stop, Dan warned, seeing Cam's eyebrows raise. You're willing to sacrifice, Cam began. Our love, Cameron crooned. You're as cold as ice. Stop, Dan warned, seeing Cam's eyebrows rise. You're willing to sacrifice, Cam began. Stop! Our love! Cameron crooned into a half-eaten Italian sandwich like it was a microphone. Freya clapped her hands together in delight, just as Brad launched a garlic knot across the table at him. But Cam was ready. He deftly ducked under the missile. Hey! Hey! Pick that shit up! The pizza man behind the counter snapped, and Cam raised his palm and sandwich in surrender. We can just have his sandwich and surrender that. God, that's a goofy-ass chapter right there. And Cam raised his sandwich in surrender. Freya recognized the glaring face. His name was Levi, and he'd been one of the seniors in The Girl Who Asked to Turn Blue last year. He had long black hair that was tied up in a ponytail under his ballerina baseball cap that was polka-dotted with embroidered pepperonis. Sorry, man, we'll stop. No more foreigner either. They fucking suck, Levi demanded, with his hands on his hips. The other chef's paper hat nodded in agreement. Cam held his hand over his heart and gasped as if mortally wounded. Then he went hunting for the garlic knot. They don't suck, Freya called back. Mick Jones is a great guitarist. He's still touring. Oh yeah? So's Kenny G, Levi called back. He had a quick wit. There were oohs from the group. He's got you there, Cam noted. He held the garlic knot that had been on the floor out towards Brad, who was shaking his head no. Freya frowned. She had heard Levi play guitar once. They were backstage, and he was trying to impress the girl who played Tracy by just butchering. They were backstage, and he was trying to impress the girl who'd played Tracy by butchering speed trials on a poorly tuned Jasmine. He had no room to talk. Kenny G sold 75 million albums. Let me know when you sell 75 million pizzas. A few A few people at the table crowed, but Freya noticed Dan wasn't one of them. She'd gone too far. It took Levi an extra beat to find a comeback. Yeah, okay, Freya. Levi wielded her name like a club, letting her know he remembered her too. Everyone in this room would take a pizza over one of his albums. Mm-hmm. Lewis raised his hands as he appealed to the crowd. Yep, nodded Dan. Definitely, Brad agreed. I'd settled for just a slice, Tate said. I'll pay you to keep the album, Can shot in. Everyone's eyes turned on Freya, and her cheeks were burning. She grappled for the right thing to say. It was a good argument. Honestly, I'd take the pizza too, Freya admitted at last. Cam began to slowly applaud, and the others joined in. Lewis raised his chin, giving a superior nod. Freya was relieved. Even if she got the worst of this exchange, she didn't want to be the kind of person who shit on someone for working at a pizza place. Wow, I didn't know you were into dad rock, Cam teased. I like musicians who can actually play instruments, Freya replied, with a sideways glance. She thought the kind of rap Cameron and Rodrigo listened to was atrocious. Oh wow, gatekeeping, Cam said, hunkering down and taking an enormous bite out of his sandwich. Do you actually like Kenny G? Dan asked, in the same tone he might have asked her if she had leprosy. Not at all. It's totally not the type of jazz I like, but you can't sell that many albums if you aren't technically sound. I really do like Foreigner, though. I can play a bunch of their songs. Wait, can you actually play Cold as Ice? Cam asked, and she nodded. What about Hot Blooded? I unironically like that one. I can play both. I'd lean to learn electric guitar to really hit the solo on Hot Blooded, though. I really like Star Rider from their debut. Can't you just buy one now? Tate asked, the same incredulous way he'd said her tires cost more than his whole bike. She felt a pang of separation. Out of the whole group, only she and Brad's parents were well off. Brad's eyes met hers. He understood. I want to get really solid on acoustic first, Freya explained. Fundamentals. You should challenge Levi to a guitar duel. For the glory of dad rock, Cam said in a conspiratorial mock whisper, but Levi was too busy cleaning up to pay attention to them. It wouldn't be a duel, Freya said. No? Cam leaned forward with a single eyebrow raised, egging her on. It would be a massacre, she concluded. That's such a doofus chapter. Oh, so yeah, we take that out because we lose all the power of our ending thing. That is so dumb. Oh my god. This I like the I like this whole the situation right here, but Jesus Christ, this has got to be like the most tone deaf chapter in the book. Teenagers do not talk like this at all. Ugh. All right. The worst part about it is, even though they don't talk like that at all, I'm still trapped. I still have to have that in there, because I like it. You know, like it's I really like it. So let me get back. What chapter are we working on here? Okay. Yeah. Consult with someone who isn't ancient. Okay, yeah, so, I mean, there are going to be places in the book where... I don't know. I thought it was funny. But it's so stupid. That might be another spot where people just close that old book and never open it again. And they'd be right to. God damn it. All right, so let's make sure that we haven't skipped a chapter. Because I think we had 2 chapter 49s there. I'm astonished by like how poorly my numbering is. Yeah, there's 49. Okay, well, we got done with chapter 50. We fucking did it. We're halfway through the chapters in this book. I knew that we had it in us. So shout out to everybody who has stuck it out for these many long hours of editing, to the point where we're halfway through the chapters in this book. It's a milestone right there. Yeah, feel free to toss in what you think about the dialogue in this chapter. We're probably too goofy for where we want to be at with this book, in all honesty. Like I understand this is like, the tone is pretty divergent, but to me this is like a fun chapter. I would love to see that chapter like acted out on stage or something like that. It has a few good notes, like one, a way for her to just bring up like how different her musical taste is from like her peers, right? So Spaethiwa found nothing wrong with it. That may be one where it's like one of those things where you don't like the sound of your own voice, but to everybody else it sounds okay. So I may be overly sensitive to how ham-fisted that is. And this might be like, you know what I find a lot of the time? When you have something where you're like, that's just fucking stupid, nobody will like this. That's the thing that people like best. The thing that you think is just completely stupid. But I can't deny. I can visualize every step of that scene in my head. I love the little embroidered on pepperonis on Levi's hat. Note that his name was originally Lewis in the first draft, and you can see where we fucked that up. The reason why his name got changed to Levi was that we added Lewis to the back of Malcolm Lewis's name. So that's part of why he showed up as Lewis there. So just, oh, wait. Oh, I couldn't see what the fucking thing was there. Hold on, I gotta go to Streamlabs. Yeah, why did I fucking hate when the announcements and stuff don't play on the screen. Yeah, it's some fucking gimmick that Streamlabs does from time to time. Dismiss. Just let me log into your fucking website, asshole. Oh my god. All right, so I think this one is through the YouTube. I'll try and get the report on what's going down there. Yeah, sorry if that was like a bronation or something like that. I think it was just a subscription or something like that. Let's take a look. Donation history. Okay, so it wasn't a donation. Let's look at our dashboard. I don't know what the fuck that was. Oh, yeah, so that's shoutouts to Spidey and KDA Chicky for subscribing there. It's so annoying the way that Streamlabs, and some interaction between Streamlabs and OBS where it just stops fucking working with the and now I have to fix it in the whole other thing. So Logic doesn't think it's ham-fisted or unreasonable, but to me, it's kind of excessive in the horseplay department. We sound like we're 90 years old. Excessive in the horseplay department. Yeah, it may be that they're like clowning around too much there, especially after the series. We could, I bet like a single line of people just looking to cut loose. In fact, that's a really good line to add there, where they're looking to cut loose after the serious class. Mm-hmm. All right, so what do we got here? Coffee, fish eyeballs, smoking a cigarette. I don't know what the hell that is. So, fish glass smoke. Oh, or what is that? Are you talking about smoking scales? What the hell's going on here, man? I can't penetrate this youthful lingo. Mm-hmm. So Logic said he slept since the last time I was streaming. No, I went and tried to sleep for a while there. One of my eyes is kind of fucking bugging me. And just kind of like a slow day in terms of I'm like working from home and I just ate terribly. Like what did I got? I had like a muffin today and a sub and drank like a bunch of coconut water and apple juice. Like, oh, what am I doing to myself? You know, that's not the way that I'm meant to eat. But I just fucking felt like it today. I'm gonna eat some ramen later tonight and try to be more reasonable tomorrow. You know what it is. Got to get back on that horse. Uh, okay, cool. So I like that note, right? Because I do agree that this is like an excessive amount of horseplay for these brash youngsters. And I think just a line about how in the wake of the serious class, everyone was clowning. Mm-hmm. Gonna grab a whiskey and play Slay the Spire while watching. Hell yeah, shouts to Slay the Spire. Um, yeah, it's like a pretty well done Dream Quest alike. I like a lot of the things that they've done. A lot of people have attempted to rip off Slay the Spire with varying degrees of success. Slay the Spire does a few things that Dream Quest doesn't do quite as well, especially in terms of like their map and everything. I think it's a little bit more interesting having some choices about what you do. There's very the way that branching works out in Dream Quest is like procedurally driven, so it can be that you don't really have any decisions at all in some cases. But to my way of thinking, Dream Quest is by far the superior game. Like Slay the Spire kind of gets boring and so forth. And I've still played Dream Quest like twice today. What do we got there? I want a fucking whiskey too. Oh, but I'm not allowed to buy more whiskey. It's that would be a terrible mistake for yours truly. yeah, I gotta tell you, like, normally I'm pretty okay in modulating my drinking, but yeah, I can't have like a bunch of whiskey around. It will get drunk. Not all at once, you know, I'm not like fucking insane or anything. But let's see, there's an image macro in the back that says I eat twice as much meat, just so one vegan that thinks he's making a difference is making no difference at all. What a G. All right, well, hopefully that just that line goes a little bit of the way towards fixing that whole thing. I really like where she realizes that she's blundered like socioeconomically there. That's a neat note for me. At 10 o'clock, Levi told the table it was closing time and gave them the boot. Freya still felt bad about her joke, but it seemed too awkward to apologize. They spilled into the parking lot and found the temperature had dropped below freezing. The cold cut right through Freya despite her jacket. She'd been so warm and comfortable inside, and now she was thinking about the long bike ride home. She wished she had a face mask. It was going to hurt to... She wished she had a ski mask. It was going to hurt to breathe the whole way. At least she had new treads. Everyone was saying goodbye. Cam and Tate were piling into Brad's car, and the other students were getting into another. Soon it was just her and Dan standing around. He moved towards his car with his keys. "Oh, have a good night," she called after him. "Did you not?" "Oh." "Have a good night," Freya called after him. "Oh. Did you not want to ride?" he asked, turning around. He looked a little surprised. "I have my bike," she said, feeling stupid for riding to Krav Maga. She should have expected this and left it locked up at school. "Oh, cool," Dan said. He was obviously disappointed. "I mean, wait, I can take the front wheel off. Is there room in your trunk? It's kind of too cold to ride anyhow." "Yeah, we can totally do that." He said, so quickly he stumbled a little on the words. Yeah, we can totally do that," he said. "Oh, we don't need to... Yeah. So we don't need to write in the stumbling, right? I think that's just a little not super necessary. Fucking... Yeah, we can totally do that," he said. So quickly he stumbled a little on the words. Freya released the brakes and took off the wheel, her fingers already stinging from the cold. Dan set the bike in the trunk for her, and they hurried into the car. Inside, she noticed Dan crossed his fingers on his right hand as he turned the key. Crossed the fingers on his right hand as he turned the key. Would you fucking do that? Inside, she noticed Dan crossed the fingers on his left hand as he turned the key with his right. Reluctantly, the engine caught, and then he cranked up the heat. "Gotta let her warm up," Dan said. "Same here," Freya joked. Alright, so, yeah, we can take out. "Same here." She tried rubbing her hands in front of a vent, but only cold air was coming out. She slipped her hand into her pocket. The starball was warm. "Hey, why do you always put your hand in your pocket?" Dan asked, and the words froze her worse than the wind. She fought the urge to yank her hand out. No, She paused, preparing to tell the same lie she'd told Dr. Garbuglio. But she didn't want to lie to Dan. He'd been so honest with her. I just have a lucky marble I carry around. I touch it sometimes when I feel nervous, she admitted. That wasn't a lie. That wasn't technically a lie. That wasn't technically a lie. Technically a lie. Terrible. That wasn't technically a lie. I didn't realize that anyone noticed. Or everyone noticed. The corners of his eyes crinkled when he smiled. Ha! I don't know if anyone else noticed. Can I see it, or is it just for you? She liked that he asked that. She ran her thumb over the star ball, wondering if she would feel the same nauseous aversion she did when she showed Dr. Garbuglio. Instead, she felt totally fine, just a little warm. The car's heat was finally kicking in. It's just for me, she began. Then she pulled out the star ball and held it towards him, her eyes on his. Caught in the gravity of the moment, Dan took the star ball from Freya and cupped it in his palm, staring down at the orb. Ha! Huh. It's so warm from being in your pocket, he said. He looked up and his eyes met hers. The air in the car seemed to thrum around them. Her heart was pounding. Thanks for sharing with me, he said. He sounded touched. Beneath her jaw felt burning hot. Her fingertips tingled from where they'd touched his. Whoa. Beneath her jaw felt burning hot. Her fingertips tingled from where they'd brushed against his. Freya stared at Dan in the amber light of the parking lot until she couldn't take it anymore and leaned towards him. Freya stared at Dan in the amber light of the parking lot until she couldn't take it anymore and leaned towards him. Dan flinched, jerking his hand away and recoiling from her. Freya had an awful, wrenching feeling she'd misread the situation. He didn't want her. She'd ruined everything. But Dan wasn't looking at her. He was staring down at his palm. Huh. It poked me somehow, Dan said. He reached up and flicked on the overhead light. He took the star ball in his other hand. On his palm was a minute droplet of blood. Oh, no. Freya's whole body clenched in dismay. She had almost convinced herself that she'd imagined the whole thing. The dot of blood in the dashboard light could not be denied. What had she done? Dan was holding up the star ball, turning it over and over just as she had, but there was no protrusion. Are you okay? She asked. He nodded and handed the star ball back to her, and she tucked it into her pocket. Yeah, I think maybe the cold just made my hand crack. I don't see any way it could have poked me. He was rubbing his palm with his thumb, holding it up to the light, but it was just the tiniest smear of blood. He shrugged. Okay. Sorry to ruin the moment there. It's nothing. His choice of words, the moment, rang loudly in her ears, and that feeling of being hot all over it only increased. Had she infected him too? She could feel the unnatural calm washing over her as the starball worked to stabilize the anxiety her clawing anxiety. She could feel its heat against her thigh. Oh shit, Dan said. Dan muttered, and she followed his eyes to see Levi was staring at them from the window, clutching a mop. Caught, he wheeled the bucket away in a hurry. Let's go, Dan said. He clicked his seatbelt on and pulled out of the lot. The thought of the red dot of blood fell to the back of her mind. All Freya could think about was that she'd screwed up and missed her chance to kiss him. Now things felt awkward. Now things felt so awkward. All she had to say was, "It's just for me." That would have been the end of it. They didn't speak as the car rolled through the night. What do we got here? So Doom Pappy says, Does this thing turn into something like the flying death balls from Phantasm or what? I haven't seen Phantasm, but that's kind of cool. I like the idea of flying death balls. Maybe I should steal that. Hmm. Yeah, what are those all about? They're just like fucking just flying orbs that murder people. I like the sound of that. She kept trying to think of explanations, but discarded them one after the other. Discarding them one after the other. They all sounded like bullshit in her head. As they drove up As they drove across the Thoreau Bridge, the night was howling around them. The crosswind blew so hard she could feel the car shift. Hey, thanks a lot for the ride. This would have been awful to bike in, Freya said, breaking the silence. Yeah, any time. You might not want to go around on your own until they get Malcolm, Dan said. I don't mind being your chauffeur. Maybe you can drive my car, she said in a sing-song voice. Huh? You have a car? Dan didn't get it. Oh, it's a Beatles song. Baby, you can drive my car, she said. Baby, you can drive my car, she said in a sing-song voice. Huh? You have a car? Dan didn't get it. It's a Beatles song, Freya explained. Oh, I'm dumb. Dan said, grinning. Why do I have a fucking Beatles lyric in this thing? Like, they will absolutely sue you for this shit. You can't even have 2 lines of lyrics. You have to like request clearance, and they want fucking money. Oh, and I know how licensing works for this shit too. Yeah, also it's like corny as fuck. Oh, I'm dumb, Dan said, grinning. You're as bad as Cam. You two should start a band. I hope I'm not that bad. I'm pretty sure he's tone deaf. Don't tell him that. He'll be crushed. No, you have a pretty voice. Pretty everything, actually. There was hesitation in his voice as he said it. He was taking a chance. Freya was blushing. She wanted to deny it, to tell him to stop. But she remembered Randall's voice on how to take a compliment. Just pause, smile, and say thank you. This is my advice also on how to take a compliment. Huh. Thank you. And that's it. Literally all you ever have to say. Anytime somebody says something nice about you, just that. Don't ever be like, no, I'm not, I don't really have a huge horse cock. Like, oh, thank you. Because that's what somebody wants when they give you a compliment. They want you to feel good and acknowledge that you made them feel good. That's all they want. They're just trying to be nice to you. And yeah, they're probably buttering you up to get something out of you, but doesn't mean you can't feel happy for just a second in your goddamn life. That was it. It was the simplest thing in the world, but it always worked. Thank you, she said, and he smiled. His eyes never left the road. For the first time, she wished her house was further from town. She didn't want the ride to end. She wanted to ask him if they could just keep going, drive on until they hit the ocean, talk all night, and watch the sun rise. The words were on her tongue, but she had school in the morning. Lass's car was still gone. The house would be empty and cold. She undid her seatbelt as he put the car in park. I'll pop the trunk, he began, and she leaned across and kissed him. Dan was taken by surprise, but he kissed her back, and suddenly she was on fire. His lips were so soft against hers, she felt like she was melting. There were a mess of awkwardness and eagerness, and his hand was on her cheek. Her tongue was in his mouth. The desire she'd felt yesterday was flaring all around her. Her pulse pounded in her ears, and she was just flooded, trembling. Oh yeah, that's where we... We don't need just flooded just yet. Are you okay? You're shaking, Dan said, pulling back with concern. It's in a good way, she assured him. Oh, wow, he managed before she kissed him again, harder this time. He reached out with both hands and held the sides of her face. Wow. Jesus. What's going on in here, guys? Ridiculous. Oh, wow, he managed before she kissed him again, harder this time. He reached out with both hands and held the sides of her face, pulling his lips away so they were barely touching hers. She wanted to cry out. Take your time, he said, smiling as she stared into his eyes. She didn't want to take her time. She didn't want to take her time. She wanted to drag him inside the house. But she could see he was nervous. She had to slow down. She took a deep breath. But all she could smell was him, and it just made her run hotter. Freya pulled away. If she didn't stop herself now, she was going to climb across the console and into his lap. The thought ran mild. Oh, God, why am I editing romance sections live on Twitch? This is so fucking embarrassing. Well, thank God. Hold on just a second. 12:45. Just a moment. And just power through it. Okay, so stay strong. Just power through it, both in writing and in the scene. No, I mean, we just need to, like, fucking not spurt all over ourselves here. Yeah, this would be an easier scene to edit if I hadn't, like, masturbated 5 times already today. So now I'm just like, ew, ugh, get away from me. But how fucking long? How deep does this shit go? It's ridiculous. Bulging through his jeans, Jesus, 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 HQ Christ. Yeah, I don't know that I have the power to correct this at the moment here. Mm-hmm. So I think we can just cut this whole section right here. Her body engulfed the Donald Trump action figure. Make Freya great again, she whispered. Oh God. Oh, good God Almighty. This is so so fucking rough. All right, so yeah, yeah. Let's take out because we just haven't like earned our way. Guys, it's just a whore. What's wrong with her? Yeah, I hate to get like all Puritan, but also like I think the escalation of sexuality at this point is too premature. Um, and we don't like justify that in the story. Like she's like very bold to be the first one to smooch the other dude too. Wow, that's intense, he said. I wanted to do that for a while. Feels like you did too. The windows of the car were all fogged up. Hey, are you doing anything on Saturday? She asked instead. Just running in the morning. Why? Do you want to come to that concert with me? My guitar teacher gave me tickets. Concert is set as 5 p.m. on Sunday. On Saturday. Yeah, totally. What time should I pick you up? Does 5 work? Absolutely. She was smiling so hard her face hurt. Everything was soaring inside of her. Huh, wow, I got late fast, Dan said. It was almost midnight. I better get home. This was really cool. Thank you. It was the right thing to do, but she couldn't help but feel disappointed. He didn't feel as strongly as she did, or he wouldn't have stopped. Here, she said, and she kissed him again, as slow and sweet as she could bear. Afterward, he pulled the bike out of the trunk for her, and she wrapped him up in an embrace. The wind was whipping around them. The wind was whipping around them, pulling in every direction, but he was so warm. At last she let go, smiling so hard her face hurt. Good night, Freya, he said. Night, Dan. Um, so apparently, Ryder Grove Street. Oh shit. Oh shit, here we go again. Says you got a nice full voice. It makes my butthole feel weird, and both full and butthole are misspelled. Yeah, man, they got ointment for that. Preparation H, motherfucker. Get at me, dog. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. At last she let go, smiling so hard her face hurt. Good night, Freya, he said. Good night, Dan. Dan was in his car, wiping the condensation from his windshield with the sleeve of his jacket. The garage door rumbled upward, and she brought her bike inside and turned to wave goodbye. Dan waved back at her, and more than anything, she wanted to call out and tell him not to go. The car rolled down the hill, and yeah. Freya stood there until the automatic light in the garage clicked off. The wind whispered around her, and she began to shiver, wishing she hadn't let him go. The starball's heat was the only warmth in the world. Well, there we go. Okay, so that... Oh my god. I think all the sex chapters... So, one thing I worry about a little bit here, as we're like editing through these chapters, is I'm like heavily editing myself for an audience of Twitch.tv viewers and people on here, because it's like fucking awkward to read through a book that has like some lurid sex scenes in it in front of a bunch of people on stream. And it may be that that like that's good self-censoring, right? And I think we can all agree it's kind of embarrassing and cringy to read through that, right? So possibly this is good editing, right? But it's also possible that as we're doing this, we're really we're cutting out things that would appeal to like some individual readers because of like a perceived like, oh, that's too whatever for an audience or whatever. So it's you know, it's a little tough to wrap my mind around, but I'm like leery of the fact that we'll edit harder because we're doing it in front of an audience and maybe lose some of like the really extreme things that were in this book that might have set it apart. But I guess I can like a little like if you want to read all those extreme, very cringy sex scenes and everything, just read Xananik, because it's packed fucking full of them, right? That entire book is just sex scenes like that. And it gets really lurid. I think one of the beta reader feedbacks was like, yeah, I could have really gone my entire life without reading about somebody's piss slit getting tongued. Yeah, it's just something I'm like keeping in my mind right here because I wrote that fucking book. So, ooh, a Garbuglio chapter. Oh, I'm glad of fucking that. We hadn't seen Don Garbuglio in quite a while here. And it makes sense. Garbuglio chapters should almost always come after Renanin chapters in the story. So that puts us up to chapter 52 here. Okay. And what was my note? Okay, so for this chapter, he should ask her something about her school day, and she should mention how she's looking forward to a concert and specify a time. I think we did that already. Okay, what do we got here? Oh boy. Shout out to Vision Shot right here, who says, oh boy, it's a thick book. Yeah, I guess that's just how kids talk these days. Yeah, this book is thicker than a snicker, dick liquor, Russian vicar. You know, like whatever you want to call it. This is a big ass chunk of a book. All right, let me let you know what we're working with here. What's this fucking guy right here? So this is Yan I Ching right here. Look at that, how thick that motherfucker is right there. That's like about 718 pages of thick. And our shit is going to come in at roughly, yeah, so it's about that thick. That's not too bad. You know, you can carry this motherfucker around. But, yeah, when did my I Ching get all wet? Let's flip to a page in that old I Ching. So, it says, Feng, abundance, fullness. So, Chen Li, the arousing thunder, the clinging flame. Whoa, holy shit. Chen is movement, Li is flame, whose attribute is clarity, clarity within, movement without. This produces greatness and abundance. Very topical for our previous chapter right there. Shout outs to them Chinamen, what came up with it. That was my intention, though. So calling me kid, that was my intention, though, so it's good or whatever. Yeah, I think it might be the fact that, Everything that you say is in an exaggerated slang. That might be why. Wait, hold on just a second. Stratum just linked something in this whole thing. Look at this giant woman. Uh, Gangsta as fuck. I love that link. My husband is a Marine stationed overseas. Someone please me tonight. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. What does it mean when you dream you're someone else? Oh, actually, what does it mean when chapter 52? What does it mean when you dream you're somebody else? Dr. Garbuglio set down his cup of coffee. The black eye was gone. Only a faint tinge remained. The sadness that had colored their meeting last week seemed to have faded with the bruise. Dr. G seemed more present today. Dr. G seemed much more present today. What do we got here? I've got about 20 to 30K words to go till I can start my editing journey. Well, good for you. Yeah, like, I will tell you, just FYI, I do not recommend writing on stream until you have been doing this shit for a long time, because you'll just get nothing done. Even like, I'm probably like 25% slower at editing when I have an audience here. But it's made up by the fact that I do it every day because I have the audience. Like, I don't like slack off and be like, I just want to write something else today. I never do that. I always work on editing. So it's been really helpful in that regard. Yeah, what's your book about there? Vision Shot. And what genre are you writing in? If it's like Sonic the Hedgehog, if it's fucking Sonic the Hedgehog fan fiction, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave the chat. That's just, it's gotta go. Yeah, it can be hard to keep focus while writing. Yeah, I'm like pretty ADD regardless. So, and I've got like 5 fucking screens pointed at me right here. So, yeah, man, it's rough. But yeah, keep up with it. I will tell you one thing. Like, if you've never written a novel before or whatever, the last 10% of finishing a book is as hard as the first 90%. So just keep that in mind. The progression of difficulty is logarithmic. So just steel yourself for that. I know other people have probably told you the same shit, but just know it is so much harder to finish. It's so easy to just peter out and not quite get there. And the technique that I always recommend to people is just have a time every day where that's the only thing that you're doing, staring at that blank page, and keep at it, and you will finish. 2 books to around 30K before, but I stopped. Yeah, I wrote, before I put out my first novella, I think I wrote something like 40 or 50,000 word pieces. I wrote like 1 whole trilogy, and I wrote 1 fantasy novel that's about 240,000 words, and none of those got completed. You know what I mean? It's just, and all of them were, that last 10% is so much fucking harder than everything else. It's inconceivably harder. Pantsing was my problem, but I've started outlining my current project, and it works really well so far, though slow. I do want to shout out to pantsing as a general thing. All my books are pantsed. Like the book that you see right in front of you, which is completed, has been 100% pantsed. I'm a huge fan of it. Aiming for something around more like 100K. Yeah. Especially if you haven't been published before, like just the edit on a 100,000 word book is monstrous. By the way, if we were editing a 100,000 word book, we'd be about done by now. Like I'd be fucking popping open the champagne and all that, but we're not. That's why it's going to cost $7,000 to edit this. Whew. But yeah, man, that sounds like you're pretty in the groove right there. Good luck with your project, assuming that it is not like Dr. Robotnik's Anal Adventures or whatever the fuck there. Yeah, it's a hard road to get up, but if you just keep doing it every day, you can at least complete it. And then the real struggle begins, trying to like sell and market something. But on the topic of writing is hard to keep going, Dr. G seemed much more present today. So he sees a lot of people settling somewhere between pantsing and outlining. Yeah, everybody's got to find their own mix or whatever there. The main reason why I don't do a ton of real strict outlining and so forth, I always want to preserve the possibility that I will be surprised by a story. Really important to me. And like I do feel like a lot of that surprise and delight when you like discover something comes through to the reader. But and also like the older you get and the longer you have written for, the more that you're just kind of like automatically outlining. Like you know where you want to get to, you know a little bit like, hey, you know, how can I show this thing? And as you're working, you'll be like, ooh, there needs more of this, the pacing is wrong and so forth. There's a natural progression of a lot of this. But good God Almighty. So I need to naturally progress towards finishing chapter 53. Dr. G seemed much more present today. Well, there's a lot to unpack in that question. Let's ease into it. First, do you think dreams have meaning? I think they can say a lot about what's on your mind. I don't think they show the future or anything, if that's what you mean. That's exactly what I'm asking. I'd like to know how important dreams are to you before we start analyzing them, since this is the first time you've mentioned one in a session. Okay. Well, I don't think they're a big deal, but this one was pretty vivid and I wanted to talk about it. We don't have to if you think it's a waste of time. I don't think it's a waste of time. There are definitely some other things going on I would like to get to in this session, though. I would say on average, people put too much significance on individual dreams. Why is that? Freya asked. Well, let's think about what dreams are. Right now, the model I agree with the most is that dreams are largely random, sort of like hitting shuffle on your memories. The brain then tries to get the brain then tries to construct a coherent story out of them after the fact. That's a very simplified version of an idea called the activation synthesis hypothesis, which has changed a little since we found out that people don't just dream in REM sleep. It was posed by Dr. Alan Hobson. He's worth looking up if you'd like to do some reading. He's written 20 books on dreams, and they all have a very sound background in neuroscience. Okay, so this guy right here, Dr. Alan Hobson, actually has a tremendous catalog of books about dreams. And if you're interested in dreams and some of the research that's been done on them, he's a very solid bet. Books about dreams are just chock full of absolute horseshit, which you'll find out like very quickly if you read into them. And I can recommend this guy. I think he's pretty solid in terms of his background. As he gets later in his career, you know, he edges like a little bit more into wackiness, I think. And this is not like a ringing endorsement of this dude. I haven't read his whole catalog, but yeah, he's worth reading here. All right, let me take a gander. Let's see. What do we got here? It isn't clear if she is asking why he thinks that or why people put that emphasis. Let me see. So Vision Shot is asking, do I have a certain way I go about editing, like reading it once before starting or when to start line by line stuff? So this is a really good question. And then ones that's kind of instructive to what we're doing here. So after, and this is a new protocol for me, but so far it's working out really well. When I'm editing a novel, first I complete the novel, right? Then I take 30 days off. It may be a little longer for you, depending on how like emotionally invested you are in the novel, what else you're writing at the time. Take 30 days off and write something stupid, right? Just something that's just fucking fun to write. For my part, I wrote a short story, which is not completed, about a bunch of Marines that are augmented with tardigrade DNA, and I called it Space Tards. So I just spent a month writing fucking Space Tards to get the taste of this book out of my mouth. After that 30 days, it's time to start editing. And I think 30 days is the most that you want to get between you and the novel. You want some distance so that you're looking at it with a set of fresh eyes, but you don't want so much distance that you've forgotten a lot of stuff. 30 days is a good amount. After that 30 days, it's time to start working on the novel. And the new method that I'm recommending, because I've just started here, is sitting somewhere quiet, reading aloud each line by line, reading every single line. And as you're editing, you read through the entire thing, making changes, stopping and making changes, reading lines again once you are done editing them, especially something that doesn't track right to you. Everything that you write should sound good, written or read aloud. And when you're doing this, what you're going to find is those big ass blocks of exposition, all the clunky wording, all the extra shit that you don't need to have in there. You're going to hear it, right? And you're going to take it out. After you do each chapter or a block of chapters, depending on how it works for you, then go back and do another read, right? Read through the entire thing. And if you want to become a narrator at some point, this is a good spot to practice narration, try to do some of the voices, to really think about like what's going on with the characters. You get to make some more changes there, right? This method right here is what we're employing on this story right here, like all the chapters that we've just done. Tomorrow, we're going to go through and do like a full read through of them. And what I'm finding as I'm doing this is it's helpful to do the read through after, like the next day. You start by doing the read through, and then that draws you back into the mindset of editing the story. Then it kind of propels you through. So this is the technique that I've been using for this book. I like it a lot so far. This edit is going so much better than previous edits that I've done, and I attribute a lot of it to reading aloud as we're editing. All right, what do we have in the commentary on the dreams people put emphasis on, Dr. mentioning? There we go. So let's go to Dr. Garbuglio. What are we looking at here? Sounds like it's worth a try. I had some ideas about how to go about it, but I might try that first. Yeah, I mean, this is my 8th novel. You know what I mean? I've been through the ringer with a bunch of different editing things. I've done like a few other things that I want to tell you that I've learned in my many years. Let me see. I asked, why is that? Okay. Okay, so that's unclear to you. Oh, so yeah, it's meant to mean, I would say on average, people put too much significance on individual dreams. Why is that? How so? Freya asked. Yeah, does it track better with how so? Okay, so yeah, I'm trying to see where you're getting at, because in my mind this makes sense. But let's go back and read through it. But let me finish my point. So in terms of editing, a few things that I've helped you or I've learned that will help you enormously is you need to finish the edit of your first draft before you let anybody read it, right? Don't let anybody else read it, because your first draft fucking sucks. You have your draft can be 25% better after your edit of the first, so when you finish the book, it's your rough draft, right? Then immediately your first draft is after your initial edit. That's the edit that I'm doing right now. We're taking a rough draft. We're doing the initial edit. If you care about your friends, if you want them to remain your friends, and if you want them to continue reading your work, never let them read a rough draft, right? Because there's so many mistakes in there. It's really just asking them to do a lot of heavy lifting. Your friends that are like real nerdy types will give you like a lot of corrections and so forth. It's just fix as much as you can before you put it into the hands of a friend. And really, if you have the option, like if you have an editor that you're going to be working with, you really want to get through the initial edit before you start working with beta readers. So sometimes that's not an option. I know editors are really fucking expensive. But definitely never, ever, ever, never Let your friends read a first draft. Get your edit done. Never show it to an agent. Never show it to fucking anybody. Like, first drafts are like, you should hide them with as much fucking tenacity as you would hide the fact that you had like a fucking tail or just a VD or something like that. Just really do not share those. But after that initial edit, that's where you can start sharing it around, getting people's feedback and stuff like that. I don't think it's useful to get feedback from just one or two people. Hold on. Okay. Let me see. So yeah, there's that whole thing. In terms of your friends who are not professional editors, their individual feedback is worthless, right? Even friends where you like them a lot and so forth, individual feedback is no fucking good on a book unless that person is a professional editor working in the publishing industry, or that has significant experience. That's not always going to be the case. It's not like a law of nature or anything like that, but vastly that will be the case. What is valuable is getting 10 of your friends, if you can, to read a story and amalgamating the feedback from all of them. Like having all of them read the book, getting like a questionnaire about what they think, like the things that you're most worried about in the story, having them answer that questionnaire, and getting sort of an aggregate of their feedback, intensely useful. Because one person will lead you very, very astray. There are a lot of things that will stick out to some readers that they'll fucking hate that need to be in that book. They're good. That guy just doesn't like that particular thing. There are a lot of things that will not bother some people, but a few people, it will just throw them right off of the book, and it may not do anything for other people. So that's my advice on editing in a nutshell. Okay, cool. And I was able to fix that problem that was there. Lots better that way. My brain wasn't clear if she was asking why he had that interpretation or if she was asking why people put too much emphasis on dreams. Okay, cool. Yeah, like I was a little confused as where you were at with that stratum, and I'm glad that tracks better. So it's about 75% my first draft. I understand the main character arc comes together, but I know that there is a lot of redundant and wrong stuff, especially in my earlier chapters. But I guess that means that I've learned stuff while writing thus far. Yeah, like also keep in mind, like writing, I don't expect anybody to be any fucking good at all until they have clocked a solid 10 years on trying to write. It's one of the most difficult things to do well that there is in like almost any art form. Outside of, like, obviously very technical music is like much more difficult. But in terms of like the creative fields, incredibly difficult to nail correctly. And it takes a very long time to get good at it. So, you got to put in the time. I'm around my third year. Yeah, well, you got 7 years before you can write anything worth a shit. So just have a good time. Make sure that you're having fun with the whole thing. Maybe you can beat the market or upset the curve there. Maybe not. But yeah, just as long as you're enjoying yourself and having fun as you're writing it, the reader will enjoy themselves as they're reading it. Like, as long as you're putting passion into it, it will come across on the page. I guarantee it. All right. So cool. How so? Freya asked. Well, let's think about what dreams are. I'll check them out. If that's true, why would brains spend so much energy generating and interpreting random impulses? Very good question. There are a few ideas about it, but nothing I'd call proven at this point. Some researchers believe it's a kind of bookkeeping, and as you've read, Dr. Garbuglio smiled and nodded to the shelf full of copies of The Fragile Phoenix, sleep plays a critical role in the formation of new memories and overall mental health. One explanation, I think, is, I think this is a clumsy aside. Hmm? Now, how would you say that? You're like, uh, I like that he's like ham-boning his own book. And Dr. Garbuglio smiled and craned his neck in the direction of the shelf full of copies of the Fragile Phoenix. Sleep plays a critical role in the formation of new memories and overall mental health. Okay, so that, by the way, is an M dash. Okay, and that's what M dashes is for, or for that's what M dashes is for. Good God. But yeah, M dashes are used when separating speech by action here, and also periods do not get italicized. You wouldn't think it matters, but fucking that's the kind of thing that typographers will shit all over you for, and I have to do my own typography, so I know for a fact. One explanation I think is interesting is something called the threat simulation theory. It posits that our dreams are really our brain sort of rehearsing for different threatening situations we might encounter to hone the fight or flight reflex. The idea tries to explain why fear is the most prominent emotion we experience in dreams and why people often dream of things like being pursued. Again, none of this is settled science. We're still a long way from understanding dreams. Disclaimer aside, I would like to hear about your dream if you're comfortable telling me about it. Okay, so let's take a look at what we have here. We have a big old block of exposition about dreams right here. And because this is a science fiction book, we can have a big block of explanation about, or exposition about the science that's going on here. But this is a lot of a psychiatrist like explaining things to her right here. I would say that in a science fiction book, you can have the bandwidth for about a page, maybe 2 pages of this. Oh yeah, you can have about a page of this, right? But we still want to make sure that it tracks and the language is clear and everything. Just because the readers will give you like a little bit of slack doesn't mean that we ever want to abuse them with something that is kind of clunky and poorly sourced. And when you're doing big, giant paragraphs of explanation like this, your speech needs to be clearer than people would talk in real life. Like none of the asides, nothing to like slow it down, very little stumbling. Like this aside right here where he's like smiling and craning his neck in the as you've reeled. Okay, so we're italicizing for emphasis right there. I don't like the I don't like that we're italicizing for emphasis right there. In fact, I'm going to take it out, right? We don't, normally we could italicize for emphasis in a book. That'd be okay. In this case, we cannot italicize for emphasis. Hold on, in fact, let me make sure that we cannot italicize for emphasis because throughout the book, we're italicizing to indicate internal monologue, right? So we lose the ability to italicize for emphasis when we italicize for internal monologue. It has to be one or the other. You can't do both. IMO. Let's see. Also, it's still a session for Freya, and while the doctor is a narcissist, at some point, turning more to her could cut out the big block. Let's see. I've asked an editor about the italicization thing before. An editor on Twitch. Yeah, don't ever. It's okay to take advice from editors on Twitch, but if you want the like real advice on how italicization or how like anything should work, pick either the Chicago Manual of Style or MLA. Pick one of those two, and then follow their dictates. You should have that book available. So I like the Chicago Manual of Style, but people will either do that or MLA. But anyhow, So Stratum, I do think that we're gonna bring this back to her like fairly soon. I think he just blogs about dreams for a little bit, and then he tries to turn it back to her. Again, none of this is settled science. We're still a long way from understanding dreams. Disclaimer aside, I would like to hear about your dream if you're comfortable telling me about it. Okay, Freya said, taking a deep breath. She'd thought all morning about how she wanted to describe this. I dreamed I was a boy who was simultaneously dreaming he was me. It was incredibly vivid. I think we overuse incredibly vivid. We use the word vivid so many times. It was very detailed. I heard the sound of people arguing in the apartment next door to him and a truck rumbling past his street. I could smell the room he was in. You know how other people's houses have a smell? Not bad, just different? I could smell that. I don't think I've ever smelled something in a dream before. It's unusual, but not unheard of, Dr. Garbuglio said. How did it feel to be in the other body? I was very aware of the contrast between us. I felt how much bigger he was, that he was stronger. Things were sort of set differently. I'm struggling for how to describe it. I'm struggling to describe it. It's a little bit like he was wearing a suit. It was It was a little like wearing a suit tailored for someone else, or trying to put on a mask that was a mold of someone else's face. But that doesn't capture it, because it wasn't uncomfortable. I was just aware of the difference. I had, all the parts. I could feel what it was like to, Yeah, vivid is kind of like vivid is a cheat word, really, when you're using it in description. Like there are like several cheat words that you can use where, like, you think writing vivid or wrenching or something makes things vivid or wrenching, but it doesn't. You know, you still have to do the work of describing in the line. And throughout your entire fucking career, you will find yourself using these cheat words and having to take them out. And like, you really just need an editor sitting behind you and like whacking you with a ruler every fucking time you do it and be like, no, write it. You know, show don't tell. But I like this. I remember why I did this too. Originally, this scene was written as a dream sequence, and I thought, no, let's chop it up and turn it into a her trying to describe the dream with the psychiatrist. So I liked that decision there. So let me see. But that doesn't really capture it because I wasn't uncomfortable. But that doesn't really capture it because I wasn't uncomfortable. I was just aware of the difference. I had all the parts. I could feel what it was like to, Freya had to pause and exhale. Her cheeks were hot with embarrassment. She'd never mentioned anything sexual to Dr. Garbuglio before, and she deflected any conversation headed in that direction. But she had a strong need to talk about the dream. It had consumed her thoughts all day. Dr. Garbuglio didn't rush her. There was no quickening of interest in his expression. He was perfectly detached and let her gather herself and continue. Really like that description of Dr. Garbuglio right there. I like the points where he's like a professional about this, because he's a little bit fighting against his own nature, I think. I could feel what it's like to be excited as a man, not as a woman. But that isn't the important part. I don't want to focus on that. What was the important part? feeling like it was simultaneous, feeling like I was simultaneously him and me, like we were somehow sharing our senses. It wasn't just me taking over some empty shell. I dreamed he was in my body at the same time, with the same sense of wonder, excitement. We kept drawing closer and closer. A thought would originate in one mind and it would ripple back through the other, and another one would flip. Oh, wow. Yeah, this is too crazy. All right, let me take a look at the chat while we go through this whole thing. Then all of a sudden, oh, shout outs to Zency6231 coming at us from fucking D Live right there. Hell yeah. Out here. The show must go on. Let me see. Excitement. We kept drawing closer and closer. A thought would originate in one of us, then it would ripple through the other. Then another would rise in response, flowing back and forth, chasing each other's tails. We were moving towards something big, some understanding. We both wanted it very much, and at the same time we were afraid. Then the feeling just ended, very abruptly, and I felt empty and alone. I woke up feeling like I had lost something that I couldn't get back, and I was just weeping until Freya froze. She'd been about to say, until the starball calmed me down. Oh, again. Yeah, so, again, I do not have the privilege of using italics to indicate emphasis. Must be disciplined. She'd been about to say, until the starball calmed me down. She saw Dr. Garbuglio's eyes lasering in on that. Until my alarm went off, and I had to get ready for school, she concluded. She couldn't tell if he'd bought it. He took a sip of his coffee. His fingers ran over his chin as he thought about it. All right, do you think suddenly, all of a sudden, etc. have their place? I feel like they're especially try to, like I'm with Stephen King a little bit on here. Like I'm not like take all the adverbs out of your book, because adverbs are like a tremendous amount of English. There's so many adverbs in spoken English. If you count all the adverbs that I use in these sentences here, they really are like there's a lot of shit happening. But that said, definitely suddenly should be used sparingly. Let's see. But yeah, like just, wherever you can try to cut adverbs. They fall into that same category as words like vivid, descriptors that seem like they're doing work, but really are not. One exception is going to be things like slowly, right? Like slowly is a valuable adverb. Like adwords exist in our language, or adverbs exist in our language because they do like a lot of work, a lot of descriptive work. But yeah, a little goes a long way. You know what I mean? They're like salt. Let's see. Until my alarm went off and I had to get ready for school, she concluded. She couldn't tell if he'd bought it. Dr. Garbuglio took a sip of coffee. Dr. Garbuglio took a sip of his coffee. And yeah, we'll take out his. Dr. Garbuglio took a sip of coffee. His fingers ran over his chin as he thought about it. Well, that's quite a dream. Thank you for sharing that with me. Your dream sounds very similar to the experiences some people have while taking psychedelic drugs. Have you taken anything like that recently? No, not at all, Freya said. She hadn't expected the conversation to go in that direction. I haven't ever. Okay. I believe you. I just wanted to eliminate the possibility. How long has it been since you discontinued the Lunesta? 8 days, Freya answered, too quickly. He stared at her for a beat. He hadn't missed that. Did we actually count that up? She would know exactly. Yeah, she does know exactly. Okay, so I said a while, but Freya is definitely the type that knows exactly how many days it's been since she discontinued the Lunesta. Yeah, that's a critical thing right there. He stared at her for a beat. He hadn't missed that. It would be unusual for this to be an effect of the withdrawal. It's probably just a very vivid dream. Let's talk about the boy. So, you know, how we were shitting on the word vivid a little bit earlier? Here, he can use that because it's in dialogue. Let's talk about the boy in the dream. I'm going to make a guess here. Was I right that Dan Gregulus was in fact not at all above talking with a mere sophomore? Freya blinked. She hadn't said anything about Dan since she'd told Dr. Barbuglio he was in her Krav Maga class. Wait, did he mention me during therapy? Freya asked, half afraid of what he might have said, half desperate to know. I would not be able to tell you if he did. Everything said here is private, Dr. Garbuglio reminded her, softening his voice. However, in this case, it really was just a guess. I haven't seen Dan recently. We only meet once a month. He just happens to be the only boy your age you've really spoken about. Oh. Well, yes, it was a dream about him. Good guess. Are you two romantically involved? I don't know. Maybe. We've been spending a lot of time together and texting a lot. He gave me a ride home on Sunday, and we spent a long time talking together. He told me about his sister and what he'd gone through. It seems like you helped him a lot. All right, what do we have here? All rules out the window in dialogue, boys. That's not true. Plenty of rules for dialogue. How do you feel about Dan? Dr. Garbuglio asked, too focused to respond to her compliment. I really like him. As a person, I mean, not just romantically. Like he clowns around way too much in a group, but when we're alone, he drops the act. He seems like a really good guy. Dr. Garbuglio hesitated, like he'd have been about to say something, but he stopped himself. Has it been physical? We kissed, but that's all, Freya said. I think I'm more into him than he is into me, she admitted. So we don't need Freya said. We kiss, but that's all. I think I'm more into him than he is into me, she admitted. That's a very common thing for people to think in a new relationship. Everyone develops feelings at their own pace, especially when you're young and inexperienced. My advice is slower is better. Really take the time to reflect on how you feel. You will definitely have some missteps, and that's totally okay. There's a balance between sharing too much and scaring someone off, and sharing too little and people misinterpreting what the other feels. It takes a long time to learn, and even as an adult, it's still a challenge. Freya nodded. She could see that already. It's hard to feel so strongly after feeling nothing for so long, she said. Ooh, yeah, we don't need she said. And yeah, it's getting into like powerful chapter territory here. Just try to hang on for right now. Enjoy it as much as you can. That feeling won't stay so intense. It's something you'll always look back at and cherish. When time runs... In the future, time will round all the edges off your memories. You forget how uncertain everything feels, and being deathly afraid every time it takes it. You won't even remember how certain you are it's all over every time it takes a while to get a return text. Yes, oh my God, Freya agreed. If I can offer a little advice here, know that it's hard to keep perspective. Relationships are always important, but keep in mind that romantic relationships at your age have an exaggerated sense of importance, and it's rare for two people to be mature enough to create one that is lasting. What makes a relationship last? Freya asked. Work. A good match feels effortless initially, but a lasting relationship is exactly the opposite. We'll talk more about it as situations arise, but the immediate advice I can give you is that it's more important to understand than to be understood. The harder you work at listening to what the other person is saying, the more attention you pay to their nonverbal cues, and the more you can reflect on what's going on beneath the surface, the deep... Oh my God, this is like a huge fucking paragraph. Do you consider your chapter length, or is that something that doesn't matter to you as much? Every work is going to have a different chapter length based on the length of the plotting action, and you'll find that as a writer, you'll generally have like an average chapter length that you'll orbit somewhere around. I think more important than chapter length is keeping in mind how boring a chapter is. And things that you think might be boring to a reader definitely are boring to a reader and need to be chopped up in some kind of way. Like you'll notice in this book, there are long ass stretches of very like disappointing and depressing sections for the reader, and we try to break those up a little bit with some chapters from characters such as the Starball and Dr. Garboglio, so it's not just one unending dirge of my life sucks, boo-hoo. But holy shit, look at this fucking... How is he talking? Okay, yeah, we can just cut that shit. God. Mm-hmm. This just needed to be broken up into 2 sentences. That's all. Okay. The harder you work at listening to what the other person is saying, the deeper your understanding will grow. The more you can reflect on what's going on beneath the surface, the stronger you will become as a partner. If you go into this with the expectation that you're still learning, and that it's probably not a forever thing, you'll have much more success. Don't go Capulet on us, please. Freya smiled at that. All right, so... Oh yeah, that's weird, but we're just at the edge of where the line tracks over there. Freya smiled at that. That's very helpful to hear. What is on? Whew. It's like a flake of croissant on my microphone. Disgusting. She wondered if he was trying to warn her that Dan would dump her. Okay, I'm sure you've heard it from everyone else, but if you two decide to take your relationship further, please use protection. Please make sure to use protection. You may want to have a discussion with each other about what it means for both of you to be seeing the same therapist. I have many couples where I see each member individually. It's usually not a problem, but keep in mind that it's totally okay for you to share everything you're feeling, and the same is true for Dan. That's part of the deal with therapy. Expect what you say and do may be repeated. Oh. That's part of the deal with therapy. The other part is I will not act as an intermediary between you. Freya still couldn't help but... Freya nodded in agreement. She still couldn't help but analyze every word he said for some sign of how Dan felt about her. Dr. Mm-hmm. Dr. Garbuglio was very good at not revealing anything. It was reassuring and infuriating. I love that we can have that dichotomy right there, where so it's simultaneously reassuring and infuriating that he's good at keeping secrets. Like, that ambiguity is superb. Okay. Well, I don't know if we're a couple or anything. I just like him. He must like me too. He's picking me up after therapy, and we're going to go visit Radomir at the hospital. The dream was just so arresting. And we're going to visit Radomir at the hospital. I'm glad we got to talk today. That dream was really arresting. I feel better now. It's quite a dream. Did you mention it to him? Oh God, no, Freya said, distressed at the thought. Way too lurid. Ugh, what a word. I'd say it's most likely just an expression of the feelings and fears you have for Dan. Definitely let me know if you keep having dreams like that, especially if you feel like you're losing control or can't deal with them. You might consider keeping a dream journal. The act of writing things like this down could help you keep them in perspective. She nodded, though she was pretty sure she wouldn't do that. Dr. Garbuglio shifted a little in his seat in preparation for changing the subject. Okay, something important. Have you had feelings of guilt? Have you had guilt for feeling positive about this new relationship so soon after your father's death? He asked, and the question hung in the air between them. It took her by surprise. Absolutely, Freya said. She was struck by the realization that she wanted to ask this all along and hadn't known until the question was posed. Nearly everyone experiences that. It's part of the process. It's okay to feel that way. I'd like to do an exercise with you. It will almost certainly be painful, but it may help. Do you feel up to it? Yes, Freya said. It couldn't be too bad. She had the star ball after all. Okay. So remember where we were just talking about how chapters are too long? Let's take a look at how long this chapter is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Oh, okay. So we have 8 pages. Most of our chapters thus far have been about 7 pages long in this thing. The Garbuglio chapters, you don't get to go as long for, right? Just because you're, they're dreams in they're like basically we're talking about dreams. It's in a psychiatrist's office. There are long periods of text, and we're writing for millennials, right? They have no fucking attention span whatsoever there. This chapter is too long. So we might see if we can break it up somewhere. I don't think that we can break it up either. We may just be stuck with the fact that this chapter is too long, and the only way to get through it is by some kind of pruning, which I hate doing. But you know, like it is what it is. It ain't what it ain't. I'd like you to take a moment and think about how hard it's been to... Okay, something important. Absolutely. I'd like to do an exercise with you. It will almost certainly be painful, but it may help. Do you feel up to it? Yes, Freya said. It couldn't be too bad. She had the star ball after all. I'd like you to take a moment and think about how hard it's been to get over all this. I'd like you to take a moment and think about how hard it's been to get over this. All the struggles you've faced. Take as long as you need, and stop at any point if you start to feel uncomfortable. Okay, Freya agreed, and they were silent for a few beats. She was thinking about sobbing against the desk, failure welling up all around her. Her pocket grew warm, and she fought the urge to slip her hand into it to touch the star ball. She could feel the tightness in her chest, the sensation of plunging into fog. "It's been so hard," she said, and her voice was a tiny thing, floundering in the air between them. 3 deep breaths, he instructed. "Take your time. You're in a safe place. It's okay to feel." She took 3 deep breaths. The words hung between them, and she had a sensation of vertigo, as if the walls were receding into the distance, or she were shrinking into insignificance. She had the irrational urge to just run out the door, to stop walking down this path. There was a petulant feeling that this was unfair. She was only 16, and Dr. Garboglio was a grown man. There was a petulant feeling that this was unfair. She was only 16, and Dr. Garboglio was a grown man, driving her forward into an awful place she didn't want to be in. Worse, he knew exactly what he was doing. She tried to tell herself that it was for her own good, and she was being a child. "You're doing fine. Take all the time you need," he said, and she wanted to scream, but she let the air hiss out. Okay, so this is too much of a reaction right here. What do we got here? Let's take a look right there. Mm-hmm. Mm. She took the 3 breaths. The words hung between them, and she had a sensation of vertigo, as if the walls were receding into the distance, or she were shrinking into insignificance. Freya had an irrational urge to run out the door. She didn't want to walk down this path. Let's see. There was Freya had a petulant feeling that this was sadistic and unfair. She was only 16, and Dr. Garboglio was a grown man. Worse, he knew exactly what he was doing. She tried to tell herself it was for her own good, and that she was just being a child. You're doing fine. Take all the time you need, he said, and she wanted to scream, but she let the air hiss out between her teeth. Do you want to keep going? Dr. Garboglio asked, and she made herself nod, though she didn't want to. Those feelings are a link between you and the memory of your father. Okay. So I think we need to Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wonder, like, see, the problem is, like, she has what we want the scene to be is him kind of taking some of the details that in fact, we need to stop here and rewrite here. Um, so what this scene should be is him, like, turning some of the things that he's gotten from her over the course of therapy and using them to really dig in a way that's painful, but with the idea of being relatively therapeutic. Like he's fishing for some kind of a breakdown here. So this is a spot. I'm actually going to stop writing at this point because I can feel that we need like a little bit more mana to work through this scene. I'm going to go back and take a look at some of the specifics in the other chapters here. And I want him to be pulling out little hooks and kind of sinking them into her here. And also, like, yeah, we're not quite through. This is our second session of the day. And I think we've made... yeah, I think we've made like some pretty significant progress. We went through a chapter that was just like super lurid, in Freya's word, and got through to it. Now we have this long ass chapter, and I think for chapter number 52, it's one where we're probably going to sink about 3 hours into this chapter, and I want to go back and rewrite. And also, I think we're going to have to trim down some of the dream bullshit, just because this is such a long chapter. But it's also kind of an important chapter because I just remembered what's coming up next here. So this chapter winds up being like something like 10 or 14 pages. So one thing that we can consider is if we want to break this into like a book 2 or a part 2 or something like that. Because if you're going to make significant revisions to the way that chapters work, it's not a terrible idea to break it up into a part 2, just so that in the reader's mind, there is like, why do we break things into parts? It's so that the reader understands, hey, things are going to be a little bit differently, or a little bit different from here on, right? Like part 2, maybe our action's going to move to a different scene. Maybe characters are going to have changed a little bit or something like that. The idea of breaking things into parts is to break them up into digestible chunks. And if we find that our chapters have suddenly gone from like, okay, they're little like seven page chunks to now every single chapter is 14 or 20 pages long or something like that, and you're going to have to soldier through a little bit more. If we're going to ask more from the reader, it might be nice for us to let them know this is the case with like breaking up parts. So let's see, do we have in chapter 51, this is not a terrible spot to break it up into book 2, because we do have like sort of the climax of their burgeoning relationship there. I forget exactly where I think this book was already broken up into parts, like parts 1, 2, and 3. And I think we come to like book 3 or book 2 somewhere shortly after this, but I can't remember how I've done the structural thing of it there. So, and I'm mostly saying this so that I remember it for later on. So I really like this description of her in somebody else's body, foreshadowing of the dream. Great, great, great. I do like him chatting about the dream with her and like giving like some of the psychiatrist stuff to her there. So this is a scene where he's almost doing like a psychoanalytical technique, and where he's getting a little weird with it. We're like venturing away from sort of garden variety psychiatry and into this guy's a little bit of a quack. So with that said, we're going to pause here. I want to shout out to everybody who plowed through some of this with us. Some great edits that I received from people here. Thank you for toughing it out through the sex scene. Yeah, as always, your commentary is fantastic. If you're interested in me or my other writing, you can see it scrolling in the Twitch and the Restream and whatever all the time. But all my books are available for free on ZachZYZ.com. You can view all the work that we've done thus far, see the differential edit between each two, so you can see exactly how much shit has gone on for the rough draft. And we're here every morning until we complete this one. So 52 is going to be, I can already sense this is going to be a relatively difficult chapter to work through, but I think it's an important chapter too. I like where we're going with this. I like this new dynamic between Freya and Dr. Garbuglio. I like that his character is developing a little bit as we're going here, and of course she is as well. So thank you all for being a part of this crazy journey, and we're out here. Absolutely. And then let's get our outro. Real talk.